Hello, Mario Hernandez, CPA with Miami Accountant. Today we're going to be talking about how parts and products show up in QuickBooks Desktop when you export transactions and the related accounting effects you're going to have as a result of the way you have things set up. So when you first set up the configuration and you connect Fishbowl to QuickBooks, you do have a configuration screen that you go through. And then on that configuration screen, you get to put all your default account information. So that default account information is what all your parts and products are going to be using, unless you were to change any of them to use a different account. And QuickBooks Desktop and Fishbowl Advanced allow you to do that. So I'm going to hit cancel. I'm going to leave everything as was. And another thing to notice that there is no items that get automatically created as a result of just connecting Fishbowl. Also, similar to that, if I create a new part in Fishbowl, so I'm going to create a brand new part to show as an example. So here's where on this step where I can put the accounting. What's going to happen accounting wise as a result of this part and product. We're creating both a part and product here with this new part wizard. It's automatically filling for us the defaults. The defaults are what we just set up in that accounting configuration wizard when we connected QuickBooks Desktop to Fishbowl. So it's going to use all these defaults. I can leave them as is, or I can change them. If I hit the drop down, I'm looking through the chart of accounts that's in QuickBooks in order to select a different account I'd want to use for this part or product. So I'm going to just leave everything with the default information selected. And I'm going to go ahead and just finish. So the part has been created and the product. If I come over to accounting integration, there's nothing to post. So again, that just shows that just creating a part or product, that's not an accounting event. That's not something that Fishbowl considers necessary to send over to QuickBooks. Instead, Fishbowl will send over that part or product to QuickBooks when you use them in a transaction. So you can have a ton of parts and products in Fishbowl and they're never going to show up in QuickBooks unless you use them in a transaction. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to create a bill. Let's just go through the cycle. We purchase it and then we sell it. So let's go ahead and create a purchase order. Select my vendor and then the part. Let's say 100 units of R303. And I'm going to give it a $10 cost. Let's update this to our LA location. And issue this. And now we're going to go ahead, just issuing a purchase order, that's not an accounting event, that's just a management tool, purchase orders, but we're going to go receive it. And then once we receive it, we're going to go ahead and reconcile it as well. And we'll say this was received via bill number 6001, and we receiving it today. I'm going to finish, just to finish off this and generate a bill inside of QuickBooks Desktop. So when we come over to accounting integration, now we do have items to post. So I'm going to go ahead and post that. And you'll see that one bill will be created here. And it's complete, and that's exactly what happened. We had one bill created and the reconciled item receipt, which a reconciled item receipt is a bill. So we'll go over to QuickBooks Desktop and see what was created. In our item list, we had 4 different items created. So it automatically created an FB underscore item, FB underscore subtotal, FB underscore discount expense, and then none for the sales tax code. So that transaction I might have, well, it was a purchase order, so it wouldn't be taxable. A bill is not taxable. It's only when we sell it on the invoice that we'd have sales tax. So it just said none, and it put this sales tax. Now, if I go take a look at this in terms of the transaction, I'm going to go over to my edit and find. And I'm going to just say, go ahead and find everything because this is a blank file. And it did this bill. So it created this bill and it's using FB underscore item as the item. So it doesn't actually create an item for each one of the items that I bring over. Instead, it always uses this generic FB underscore item. And then within the description, it'll put the part number and then the part description. In my case, in Fishbowl, I just put the same R303 as both the part number and the part description, but really it's the part number dash part description. That's what came over. And then if I look at the accounting behind the scenes by coming over to reports and transaction journal, I'll see that it hit inventory asset, which was my default inventory account in Fishbowl, and it hit accounts payable, which we expect accounts payable, but inventory asset, that is what I have over here in Fishbowl. If I look at this part and the accounts, it's right there. Inventory asset, that's my default account. Now, if I go ahead and let's go ahead and close this out because we're done with it. We saw the accounting effect of it. And let's go ahead and sell this now. So we purchased it, we received it, and we reconciled it. We have it sitting in our LA, Los Angeles warehouse. Let's go ahead and create a sales order to go ahead and sell it. Let's say 5 units of R303. And this is going to come out of our LA location. And I'm going to just mark it as non-taxable because, well, I can put a tax. We'll do California tax just to have that show up as well. We'll issue this. Oh, let me put a sales price. Sell it at $20. Okay, let's save that. And I'm going to do a quick fulfill. A quick fulfill just does the picking, packing, and shipping for us. And I'm going to hit finish, and that's going to just pick, pack, ship it so that it's ready to send over an invoice to QuickBooks. If I come over to the accounting integration, I have an item to post, and we're going to export, and that will export the invoice that we just created because we shipped it out, and that generates an invoice in QuickBooks. And you can see that export's complete, and the one transaction that was created is an invoice. So let's go to QuickBooks and see how that looks. If we come over to our edit menu, first let's see if any new items were created. And no new items were created. And then let's go to edit and find. And we will, within find, search for all transactions. And I'm going to go back one step. I'm sorry. It should have created, yeah, it did. California sales tax. So that we didn't have in before, but since it was on the invoice, it went ahead and created that one for us. And these items, you can see the account related to them is sales tax payable. And that's what it should be using. Let's come back to our find and take a look. Now what got created is an invoice and a journal entry. The journal entry is the costing side, the cost of goods sold and the inventory adjustment. So let's take a look at that first. And sure enough, cost of goods sold got debited. Cost of goods sold increases. Inventory asset got credited. That means your inventory value goes down because inventory went out the door. You sold it. So cost of goods sold and inventory asset, that if we come back to Fishbowl and look at the part, those are the accounts that were associated. Inventory asset and cost of goods sold. So that comes straight from the way we had the part configured, the way that the journal entry goes that's related to the invoice. And then the invoice itself, it's again using FB underscore. Again, in the description, it has the product number dash the product description. And if we look at the journal entry for this, we come over here to reports and transaction journal. The accounts affected are sales retail and then sales tax payable. That's associated with that California tax item. All your sales tax ones go to sales tax payable, assuming that's the way you had it configured. And then here's our sales retail because that's what we have configured with that R303 product. If we come over back to, let me open up the product from here, click on the product link. And if we look at the account, here it is, sales retail. So it's going exactly what we have configured in Fishbowl. That's where it ends up in QuickBooks. It doesn't matter that in QuickBooks, it says FB item. If I go to the item list and look at this FB item, it just shows sales retail. So that happens to be what we wanted it to use. But on the purchase, even though it only shows sales retail, let me go back to the purchase. Here's the bill. It's using the same exact item, FB item, but it's not going to sales retail. Even though this is a non-inventory item and there's only one account associated with it, it goes to inventory asset. So Fishbowl uses this generic item and it manages to push to the transactions like journal and accounting effect. It pushes whatever account you have listed in Fishbowl that it should be pushing. So for, in this particular case, sales, it's going to sales retail. But then for the purchasing side of things, it uses the part accounts. And there it's using inventory asset. That's a pretty, I guess, neat trick, or the way they program that, so that Fishbowl always uses whatever accounts are in Fishbowl, even though it just uses that one generic item inside of QuickBooks Desktop. So if we were to change these accounts in Fishbowl, let's say that we wanted to do that. Let's say we don't want it going to inventory asset. We want it going to an account we have called, let's see if we have another one we can use. I'm going to jump over to, here, I'll just leave it like that. Inventory asset, which is really the default. But what I want to do is create a new one in QuickBooks, so we can see what happens if we change an account in Fishbowl. I'm going to create a new account. I'll call it inventory asset number 2. And then I'm going to do one for sales as well. I'm going to say, this is sales retail. Let's create another one called sales retail number 2. All right, we create a new asset account and new inventory account. And let's see what happens if we were to try to switch this part and product to use those new accounts. First, just because I changed the accounts over there, even if I refresh here this module, I'm still not going to see inventory asset number 2. In order to see that, let me get out of here. I got to go back to the accounting integration, and I need to import. In this case, I need to import the account. That's the chart of accounts. That'll import any changes I've done to my chart of accounts, so that Fishbowl, when you're going to map them, it knows what accounts are available in QuickBooks. You need to import the accounts. So import's complete. It imported 36 accounts. Now if I come back to the part, I'm going to refresh this module again. Now I should have inventory asset number 2 available. And there it is, inventory asset number 2. I'm going to save that. And then I'm going to save on the product. I'm going to update this as well. Let me refresh this window. Sales retail number 2. I'm going to save that. So I've changed the accounts that were associated with it. I'm going to do a new purchase. R303. Let's do this one for $15. I'm going to issue that. I'm going to go receive it and reconcile it. We'll give it that invoice number. We'll say this is as of today. And then next and finish. So that's going to generate a bill in the system for us. And I'm going to go ahead and record the sale as well. So this was, I received it to, in this case, to SLC, but I know I still have some in the other one as well. So let's do a new one. And this is going to be, let's say we sell it to this customer. We're going to sell 1 unit of R303. And let's just keep this in California, because I know I have inventory there in California, not to be changing locations. All right, so let's issue this. I forgot to put a sales price. Let's put a $25 sales price. And then we're going to do a quick fulfillment just to get this out the door as fast as possible. Quick fulfill does the picking, packing, shipping all in one step. And that's it. It's done. It's out the door. And we can go ahead and go to our accounting integration and synchronize this. We're going to be synchronizing a bill and an invoice. Okay, there's our bill and there's our invoice. And our reconciled item received because we received it and reconciled it. But that really just means it's creating the bill. So we'll say OK. And then let's go take a look in QuickBooks Desktop. If we were to come to our item list, we still have our FB item. It didn't create any new item. If I look at this, it's still just going to sales retail. So I changed it to sales retail 2, that R303, but this does not change. And this really doesn't even matter much because Fishbowl is going to ignore that and it's going to use whatever it has in Fishbowl. Let's go to our find and look at our recent transactions. So the bill that just came over, it's right here at the top. Actually, I take it back. It's right here. It was 9,001. And to see what account was used here, we're going to go to our reports in our transaction journal, and it used inventory asset number 2. So it's programmed so that whatever you do in Fishbowl and you update in Fishbowl, that's what's going to be used in QuickBooks Desktop. And if I go back a step and I look at the invoice that just got created, and then I look at the accounting behind the scenes, it's using sales retail number 2, the new retail account that we had configured for this R303 product. So it's updating correctly as it should, and that's what's going to affect your financials. The accounts you put in Fishbowl, you can change them as needed so that they hit the right accounts within QuickBooks. And here's the journal entry that got updated, and it also shows inventory asset number 2. So it does update the associated journal entry. Any transaction that is exported after you do these updates, they're going to have these new accounts associated with them. And that's the way the item account mapping works in Fishbowl, the way it affects your accounting in QuickBooks and the way the items show up in QuickBooks. Please subscribe and hit that like button to support our channel, and we will see you next time.